Yeah, I'll just welcome Kevin again. I mentioned to everybody, as we were waiting, just that I thought the discussion we had was great, the last month, and it was so good that I didn't realize that we ran out of time before we got to see, kind of, I guess, to speak. I know we spoke a lot about the theory and methodology, the science behind scanning and game awareness, and a lot of the way that you teach it in your book and everything, but we didn't really talk a lot about how to train for it, how to develop it, and I think it's that was sort of the impetus for bringing you back, and I guess maybe while you get things loaded, if you want to get the conversation started there. Oh,
okay. In fact, Richard, I think my other laptop is working now, so I prefer to go on that.
All right, good. I feel like I'm in the Matrix right now. Awesome. All right. Okay. There we go.
Right, let me get on here. There we go. We'll get that laptop out of the way. Get this one back in here, and hopefully no more issues. Apologies. I'll just need to plug in something else. And yeah, I'm just starting up my presentation, so that'll be much better. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we're all good. We can hear you, see you. Yeah, all good. All right.
No, I'm not hearing you. Hold on.
Oh, no. Okay. All right.
This is. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
All right. Okay, there we are. Yep, sorted. Right, I'm just waiting on this presentation starting up, and we'll get on that. Yes, so apologies about that, everybody. Yeah, but we ran out of time last time. I waffled on a bit too much, and obviously this delay is eating into our time here, but happy to stay on for as long as you need. So last time we managed to cover, or we talked about, as you mentioned, the science, the theory behind things, and we're just going to go through some easy, practical applications, how we could do things in our sessions here. So I'm able to share my screen, okay? You'll need to allow me to do that, Richard.
Let's do that. Should be good now.
Okay, great. Share. And we're in the presentation, okay? Yep.
Looks good. Yeah.
Right, great. So part two, the practical sessions. I think everybody, hopefully everybody that's on and watching saw the theory thing last time, but just we're going to talk about scanning, how to train it and develop game awareness, and look at the practical application within sessions. As I said before, same slide as I had last time, because this guy is a god to me. He's always, he was like a bird on a wire. He was always checking, always looking about him. Very important, and he had a hugely successful career, unsurprisingly. So we talked about a little bit about the decision-making process last time. I'm not going to go into that again, but we'll have a look at this, where we say that the major problem is, for the vast majority of players, is they focus on the ball and then they control the ball, and then they start looking around the playing area to see what their decision could be, and before they carry out their game action, and that's far too slow. So what we're going to look at is how can we impact on this, look, the scanning aspect, the searching of the playing area, having a look around yourself, and how can we put that to the front so that leads this whole process. Okay, and obviously players are still going to need to look at the ball, but they should be looking at the ball, they should be looking where our teammates, where our opponents, where's the space, etc., which will inform their decision making, but they've got to look around, and it can't be just once they receive the ball. So this has to lead the whole process. So what we're going to look at today is just simple constraints that we could add into sessions to force that habit, or force the players to develop that habit. Show this video again of Frank Lampard.
I think we counted about 18, was it? Or
And again, you just see how often he looks around himself when he's playing, you know, and he had, again, a really top career. I mentioned this last time, this little cycle, but again, active scan A, you know, A, first letter of the alphabet, works in English with this, but A to F, the cycle starts with A, or A leads the cycle and informs everything else. So active scanning, players have got to be doing that. Just to again link into this, and the view at the bottom there, you know, anybody that's logged in, please go into YouTube and look up Football Network World and look for the learning from the game, from the game to design drills that develop scanning skills. And Gears Jordet, who we talk about frequently, and this is the info I'm going to give now is from his study. He participated in that one, so he's got some great information there. So people log on, have a look at that. But basically what he found in his study a way back that he published in 2013 was that there was a difference between the frequency that players in the English Premier League scanned. So this was midfielders, and he found that the more you scanned, the more successful passes that you had. So those that scanned a lot, high frequency players, completed 77% of forward passes, and the low frequency players only completed 39% of their forward passes. And these were players playing in the English Premier League. So top players, but is this something that we could help them add to their game? And maybe those at 39% could get closer to that 77%. Okay. Again, by all means, go away and look at the research papers and find the exact details of that. And Gear does again, if you go into YouTube and put Gear's name in and look up the MIT Sloan Sport Conference, you'll see a great presentation that he does there, and that was back in 2013. We'll just quickly look at the key moments for active scanning. You know, the key times. We're not saying these are the only times, but you'll find this covers the vast majority of the times players might need to do it in the game. As the ball is travelling when receiving a pass, so as late as possible, as early as needed. So can you still scan, have one last scan, have a little look away, even as the ball is coming towards you? As the ball is travelling after passing the ball, so as the ball is moving away from you as you pass, can you lift your eyes in another area, the playing area, to see what is going on? You don't just need to follow the ball. As the ball is travelling between two players, so as the play is going somewhere else and the ball is getting transferred from one player to another, whether that's teammates or opponents, as that ball is moving, can you have a little look away somewhere else in the playing area to inform you of what your next decision-making process might be? In between touches, when a player is moving with the ball, now this is, you know, they could be moving slowly and taking a touch, a bit of time, a touch, and then you've got time to look. Or they might be exploiting space quickly, and again, there's usually an extended period between the touches, so they're running with the ball as opposed to dribbling. Again, in between those touches, there's an opportunity to have a little look away to see what else is going on around you. When they're dribbling for, you know, close control or to beat an opponent, the frequency of the touches in there, it's going to be difficult for you to look every time between touches. So we're on about as a player is moving slowly with the ball, or there's time in between the touches. And then the last one that's a bit more advanced, so people don't need to take this as read here to a certain degree, but as the player is taking a controlling touch, now you need to know your teammates and you need to know how they play, and you need to be able to read that it's a controlling touch and not a first time pass. So that's a bit more advanced, but there's an opportunity there. If you know that they're going to take a controlling touch and then a second touch to pass the ball, then there's an opportunity there for an extra look if you need it.
Kevin, can I stop you? If you just go back to that slide quickly, that it's occurring to me that perhaps it's almost like players will need to be scanning almost all the time in a game, because it's if you think of all of these moments together, there's almost not
a moment that isn't covered.
Not a lot of dead time in there.
I've covered all my bases here. As much scanning as you possibly can when you're off the ball, because that's going to inform you, even with the simple things. Do you move when you're off the ball and the play is far away, and you're not likely to become directly involved in the ball for some time, but even that scanning away tells you, right, I maybe need to move a yard or two further in that direction, or push up there, or drop off here, or slide across here, or make a run here to go and support. So when you're off the ball, you should be scanning as frequently as possible in order, one, to inform you where you should be positioning yourself on the field of play in relation to ball, teammates, opponents in space. But also, if I do then get the ball, what can I then subsequently do with it? And you'll already have an idea and of a decision in your head before you even receive the ball. So yeah, you're right. Off the ball all the time. And like I say, my ABC for that, you know, I use loads of different letters, but ABC, always be checking, right? Always be checking. So always scan, always have a look around you. Yeah, great point.
Got it.
Other little considerations for scanning. So players must be able to scan left and right. You know, players will have a favourite shoulder. And again, if you put them in a training environment on a game, they'll be maybe better scanning over the left shoulder than the right shoulder. So can we train them to be as effective both ways and feel as comfortable both ways? And often even just if you sit there and you look left and you look right, you'll even feel one just feels slightly more comfortable than the other. Players must be able to scan horizontally and vertically. So can they look across the field and can they look up and down the field? So they need to be able to do that kind of stuff. Players must be able to scan at the right time. We've just touched on that. Scanning demands can be position specific. So the way you might need to scan will be different if you're, say, a left back compared to a centre midfielder. Okay, but my philosophy is if we can get players being 360 degrees, then when we find where their position is going to be, particularly when we're on about developmental players, a 9-year-old, who knows where a 9-year-old is going to end up in the game? So if we can make them 360, if they end up as a left back, they're able to scan as a left back. If they end up in centre midfield, they're able to scan as a centre midfielder because they have the capability of scanning 360. They can fit into the position. Scanning demands can be team specific, so how you're going to play could actually, or how your team is playing, which is normally dictated by the coach. Because scanning patterns could be constrained by that because of how the team plays, how you're looking to advance the ball, how you look to progress the ball, how you look to defend, who your key reference points are around you within that team, so who you need to always be checking. And it can again be game specific. So the game specific, it will change from week to week because who you're up against, the opposition that you're up against will impact how you're going to be able to play. So therefore, the way that you need to scan in any given game might be slightly different from the previous game or another game. Now, the basic fundamentals will be there. For example, scanning to cross a road. It doesn't matter what road it is. If you have the basic principles of scanning, it doesn't matter whether it's a road here in the Canada or US or if it's a road in the UK. Now, the scanning pattern will be slightly different from the North America to the UK because of the side of the road that they drive on. But you understand the basic principles of scanning to cross the road, so you can apply it within the context. It's the same with a game. You'll have the fundamentals, but how you might need to apply them could be slightly different because of the opposition. Little clip, Billy Gilmore, just to show a bit of scanning, even as the ball's on its way to him, a bit of scanning off the ball, a bit of scanning as the ball's on its way to him, and he's an effective player. He's a bright young player, a good talent, and hopefully he'll have a fantastic career in the game. And he's Scottish, so I love that. Right. So players develop as the environment demands development. Again, I think I maybe showed this last night, but Arsene Wenger talks about this. There's it's the Science and Sport Conference. He does a great talk and he mentions this. He mentions it in his autobiography as well. He was big on this. He got Gear Jordet to do a season-long study at Arsenal, Gear and a whole amount of scientists that looked into all the data, but they did a study because he took this seriously. Okay, scanning is really important. In the bottom paragraph there, it is therefore important to develop exercises that help increase this ability to gather information. Now, a lot of people say, well, can we not just develop this when we play and get them to play? Well, some people will get it, but what about the ones that don't quite get it? You know, we're just going to leave them behind. And then that brings me into this. There was a study done in the Netherlands about the training formats that we use. And here they measured these Dutch players. So this was top league players, the Eredivisie players in the Netherlands. And these players, on average, you can see competitive matches required about 0.44 scans per second. So they looked about in the 10 seconds prior to receiving the ball, they looked around 4.4 times. Obviously, that's an average. before they got the ball to inform their decision making. And that is about an average level of scanning required at the top level, or performed at the top level. Anything above a 0.5 is considered high. So if you're looking around once every 2 seconds, or 5 times in the 10 seconds prior to receive the ball, that would be considered high. So what they did was they studied the various training formats that us as coaches tend to use. So small-sided games, possession games, passing and receiving drills, and rondos. And they measured the amount of times the players scanned in those exercises. And what they found is in the small-sided games, the players only scanned 0.36 times per second. So they looked around 3.6 times in the 10 seconds prior to receiving the ball. Possession games, 0.22. Passing and receiving drills, 0.12. Right? Rondos, 0.03. Rondos require the least amount of scanning because the kind of nature of the structure of a rondo, etc. So this shows us as coaches, these sessions actually don't promote scanning. Now, did they relate to the game? Yes. Does it mean that they're bad types of exercises? No. All it is saying here, okay, well, this raises our awareness. Do we want to try and promote more scanning in our exercises? And then how do we go about this? Because you can't just rely on the old-fashioned technique of coaching scanning by stopping the play and saying to the players, remember to check your shoulder, because that just telling somebody doesn't work. Put them in an environment where they're forced to scan to survive, then that's going to help promote more scanning. So I'm going to talk through some exercises that relate to these. There's 4 little exercises. We'll go through them fairly quickly and then hopefully be able to have a bit of a discussion as well. Happy to stop after each one. So I've chosen a drill, a basic passing drill. I've chosen what I call a dynamic exercise, where it's unopposed, but the players have an area to move around in. So it's more a variable environment as opposed to a drill, which is more a block environment. And then I've got a couple of opposed practices, just to show, again, a more random kind of environment, getting closer towards the game. But I'm not going to show any exercises that incorporate goals, traditional goals and that. So you'll see as we go through. And if there's any questions, by all means, stop and ask. First one. Basic, very, very basic passing drill. Now these exercises, these were filmed back in 2010. I've done a lot of work with the Irish FA for 12, 13 years. We actually recorded a couple of DVDs that won't I sell, but we also give it as resources on the UEFA courses. So we put these together. So some of the dimensions won't be absolutely perfect, but it was the only way we could fit them into the camera angle, etc. But it gives you a feel for what we're trying to do in the session. So this basic passing drill, I'll let this play and you can have a look. Right, so really basic. We'll all probably have done something like this before, and again, I do square passing drills, Y passing drills. I incorporate this into any passing drill that I might choose to use, because, terrible me, I still use drills sometimes, much as people out there would say.
That's a slap on the wrist here in Ontario.
That's it. I am a bad coach. I am a bad coach. No, I sometimes use drills. And to be honest, when I go out to a lot of clubs, whether it's professional clubs and working with the first team, or whether it's the youth development clubs, people are still using drills out there. So I'm not going to preach to people and say, don't use drills. I'm going to say, okay, if you use drills and you like to use that as part of your coaching repertoire, because it still has a valid place in coaching, how can we get more out of that time that you're working with the players? And can we even incorporate a bit of scanning? So you can see here, I've just used the players using cones, discs. You can use pennies. I get players to wear gloves or wristbands. You could just use one hand, two hands as the signal. There's numerous things that you can do, anything that just provokes that extra bit of scanning, because without this, you might say to the player, remember to check your shoulder. They'll do it once or twice, then they won't. And you'll need to keep telling them. But that's not going to promote a habit then. If you have to keep telling them to do it, it's not going to promote a habit. And them only doing it once or twice, then not bothering again, that tells you their habit is not to scan. Their habit is only to look at the ball. So that's the habit that we actually need to get away from. And that's what we train a lot in our exercises. We actually train the habit of the player looking at the ball. So just to show you that, this is a slightly different format, but of the drill. It's a variation on that 3-player passing drill. You can see, right, we've got here, there's the player holding up the cone. There's the player scanning to spot and call it the colour of the cone that's getting held up, right? And you can see, oops, wait there. You can see the ball is on the way to him. Right, so even as the ball is on the way to him, he's having that one final last scan. And that's what I always ask my players to do. Can you have that last scan as the ball is on the way? Because what you'll find is even in a drill like this, players will cheat, okay? They'll look early and call it the colour early before the pass is even played. And then they watch the ball all the way from their teammate's foot all the way to their own foot. And I don't want that. So I ask them, the early scans are great, fantastic, but can you have your last scan as the ball is on its way to you, right? So after the pass and before your first touch, as the ball is traveling, can you have one last look away to spot and call it the colour? Because what I say to them is that player at the end that's holding up the red cone, you might change it to yellow on you. You know, in the game, the picture could change. Can you update it as much as possible? Can you take one last scan to have the most up-to-date picture possible to confirm what decision and what game action that you're going to make? So I find that really important because players will kind of cheat. And also, and even though this seems very simple, if you do this drill with your players, you'll find you're going to be coaching the player at the end to hold up a cone at the right time the vast majority of the time to start with, because they'll stand there and daydream. Because again, we have conditioned them into drills. They just stand at the other end with nothing to do. And they start ball watching and then they'll go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So even just that concentration element of holding up a cone really helps engage the other players in the session to hold it up at the right time. So, you know, there's other factors that come in here just through the simple addition of coloured cones or coloured gloves or one hand, two hands. So I like those kind of things in because it's a really basic starting point to encourage players to scan. And every coach has access to these things. Every coach has cones. Every coach has pennies. Every coach has players, you know, that are able to maybe hold up one hand or two hands. So you're able to even promote a bit of scanning with a minimum amount of kit. Now, there's loads of fancy kits out there, flashing lights, you know, Fit Light system, other systems. I use things, technology-based training in small group sessions. I use it to supplement the other stuff that I do because I think it's important that players are still looking for players, right? And that becomes
just a quick question, Kevin. Do you have in these drills, like are players competing? Like are they to see how many times they get it right or wrong, that kind of thing?
Well, I ask them to measure themselves, and what I like to do actually is in a drill or in any exercise when I'm working with players, I'll ask them, like, if you don't get it quite right, because I like the players to be their own coach. I say, if you don't get it quite right, do one push-up. Now, the push-up isn't a punishment. The push-up is an acknowledgement that you've recognised you maybe didn't get quite something right, and you're shown to the one yourself and your teammates, I want to be better. I want to be better. I didn't quite look at the right time. I didn't call it the colour before my touch. I didn't do this. I didn't have my body shape quite right. You know, I really ask them to then think about themselves, and I'll be watching. And what you'll see often in some exercises, the players don't do something and they'll look over to me, right? Because it's like, oh, has he noticed that?
Did he see it?
And I'm going, and then they'll look at me and then they'll go, I'll go, no, you're not doing the push-up for me. You're doing it for yourself, right? So this is your ownership of your development. So, you know, don't check me. Be honest with yourself and have your integrity that if you recognise you haven't done something quite right, and you determine your own standards, not me. Okay, then. And so whatever, if I'm watching and if I see you do something and you don't do a push-up, I'll go, well, that's the standards that you are happy with. Okay, so I'm willing to work, even if you can't get something right, but you acknowledge that you haven't met the standards that you should, I can work with you. But if you're going, this is as good as I want to be, coach, that's a tougher challenge for a coach to then help somebody, you know. Anyway, so a drill environment. So yeah, you can ask them, how often can you do it? Can you fit in one, two? And then there's other things I add into these exercises. So I'm keeping it very basic here, but I add in all sorts to really challenge the players with their physical literacy as well, and it all ties in. You know, the ball's coming to them, but they're then put off balance. They haven't got their feet available. There's loads of stuff that I put in, but we're working on a simple aspect of scanning here, and then we can build in more constraints that I love. So that's a drill. Here, we're going to look at what I call a dynamic exercise. So a dynamic exercise is where the players have got more freedom to move around the area. And what you can see here is we've got a playing area marked up with 4 cones. Now, even for this number of players, I would have a bigger playing area, but this is just a micro demo, okay, of the session. So don't think this is the dimensions that you would use for these players, but this was the best way for us to capture it on camera, just to give coaches an illustration of it. So what we've got is we've got 4 blue players in the middle, and we've got 4 green players. There's 1 green player hid behind here, or yellow, whatever you perceive that is. So pass to the opposite colour. So blue's past to yellow, yellow's past to blue, okay? Is the move. We've only put 2 balls in here to keep it simple and clear. Again, the number of balls in there will depend on how many players you've got and how you want the session to be. The number of players that you'd have in there, you will dictate that. This is just to illustrate the idea of the session. Now, the purpose of this is anytime you are receiving a football, you have got to spot and call it the colour getting held up with your teammate on the outside. So you can see I've got a yellow player on the outside there and a blue player on the outside here. And I call them flashes, right? So because they're holding up a visual cue, they're holding up a signal for the player to spot and call it. Okay, so if you're in yellow and you're receiving the football, you've got to spot and call it the colour getting held up with the yellow player on the outside. If you're in blue and you're receiving the football, you've got to spot and call it the colour getting held up, but the blue player on the outside. As you're moving around, that's what you've got to do. And importantly, what I say to these 2 flashers on the outside is you've got to be constantly on the move. Because if you just stand still, the players know where you are. They don't need to go through any effort of continually trying to update even where you are. So I'll just let this run. So as you can see, the tempo isn't great because of the size of the session we've got, and we've asked them to keep it fairly slow so it's clear on camera what they're trying to do. But you heard them calling it the colour there, hopefully, and spotting their teammate. The flashers on the outside could be moving around more, but you get the basic idea. But what we say to the players, so in fact, if we look at this constraint is slightly different. Now you can see there's a red ball and a yellow ball. It's the same principle in the exercise, passed in opposite colour. But now we've got the yellow flasher on the outside relating to the yellow ball, red flasher on the outside relating to the red ball. So now if you're receiving the yellow ball, you spot the yellow flasher. If you're receiving the red ball, you spot the red flasher. So at any given time, your reference point could change. But what I'm going to illustrate here is, there's the yellow player on the outside holding up the yellow cone. This blue player here is receiving the yellow ball. As it's on the way, you can see he's having a look over there to spot and call it the colour. Even as the ball is on its way, he's having one last look. Now, the point I'm going to get to here is what you ask the players is, right, when do you need to know where the player is on the outside, whether it's a team flasher or a colour-coded flasher to the ball? And you'll get the players saying, well, need to know as I'm receiving the pass. I go, well, that's when you need to call it the colour. Is that when you should know where the player is on the outside? And then they'll say, well, just before the pass is played. I say, well, that is better than the ball being on its way to you. But what's even better than that? And then we get to all the time. Okay, can we look all the time? So as you're moving around, can you think of a basic scanning pattern? Where's the footballs? Where's my teammate? Where's the footballs? Where's my teammate? Or in this case, because you could receive the yellow ball, you could receive the red ball at any time in the exercise. As you're moving around, can you think, where's the footballs? Where's red? Where's yellow? Where's the footballs? Where's red? Where's yellow? Now, bear in mind, you're always in the move in there. The footballs are always in the move in there. And the flashers are always on the move on the outside. So your body orientation should be changing. You should be updating where the footballs are going. You should be updating where these players are. And then in this exercise, particularly at some stage, you'll get to understand, right, it looks like I'm going to maybe get the yellow football. You'll start concentrating on the yellow player. You'll get your body orientated between the yellow ball and the yellow player on the outside. So as that's coming in, you can have that one last look. But the important thing is you've encouraged that last look coming in, but you've now encouraged them to look around all the time away from the ball. We've never given them that reason really before to do that on a continuous basis. Now, and again, what some people will say to me is, yeah, but what's colour cones and that or colour gloves got to do with the game? Well, nothing really. It's not about the colours. It's about the fact
about the habit.
The habit of looking, and they're looking for other players. They're looking for another player just now. Where's that player? Because if I'm trying to get on the ball, it's maybe, can I get that? Play that out ball over there. Yeah. But maybe that's not on. I'll go and play something else in here. But that habit of constantly looking about the ball to update the picture of what's here. And what's going on around you. So here, again, where's the footballs? Where's red? Where's yellow? Where's the footballs? Where's yellow? Where's red? So building that scanning pattern.
Yeah, I'll stop you just briefly because there was a question, and I'd like to see if I can tie this in from Toby about repeating the number of scans per minute for the various types of training. And it occurred to me that, you presented this data that showed a fairly limited number of scans for, obviously Rondo's was the smallest, but it was fairly low for drills, and even kind of surprisingly maybe low even for small-sided games and stuff. Yep. But that's the conventional drill or small-sided game.
Yeah.
So now you've taken the same kind of exercises, but you've added these constraints in, and now you're probably getting, I don't know, dozens of scans per minute, right? I mean, yeah.
and this is what I say back to when we talked about that thing with small-sided games, possession games, passing and receiving drills and rondos. It's not to say these are bad exercise, because this is exactly what I'm showing you here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying other ways to add in constraints that promote more scanning, and this is what this does, because without these constraints, we've seen in the study how often players do scan. Now, with these constraints, they scan more. Why? Because we've given them a reason to.
Yeah.
We've given them a reason to. We've given them purpose. And the more you repeat anything like this, the more it becomes habit. I walk around the playing area and I look about. Why? Because that's what I've been training myself to do every day. I'm not maybe on about me here. I'm just on about the general theory. Yeah, okay. So, whereas if you train yourself every day to be in drills where you only watch the ball as it travels around the playing area, what is your predominant habit going to be? I'm going to follow the ball around the field of play. Yeah. Right. So we need to be, again, it's not saying any of these exercise formats are bad. It's they're good. That's what we use. These are the tools we use. How can we, if we want to promote scanning, how do we promote more scanning than normally happens in these exercises? And that's all I'm saying. So something like this is a simple addition, a simple constraint that you could add in that will promote more scanning, even in an unopposed exercise like this. Now, another question there, Richard?
Yeah, so it's Toby again. I don't know, perhaps if you want to go quickly to the slide again. Yeah.
I'll repeat that slide at the end of this.
Yeah, we'll have a look. Yeah.
So it comes back. So, and I thought it was important to bookend these with that slide. So we'll come back to those numbers and those exercise formats. So great point. Right. Here's another exercise format, so slightly bigger, and this is an opposed exercise now. So we have got the playing area marked out here by the white cones, and what we've got is 4v2 in here. Okay, so it's 4 plus 2 v2. So we've got 4 blues inside the playing area. They are supported by a yellow and a red floater on the inside, and they're up against these 2 green players. So it's blue versus green plus the red and the yellow. On the outside, same principle, I've added in flashers, right? So I've got a red flasher, I've got a yellow flasher, and they're constantly on patrol going around the outside. So people need to know where they are. Now, the structure of this game, the scanning is particularly tied in with the method of scoring that. Okay, so the way that the blues score, they must, to score, they pass it into the yellow or the red. and whoever receives it back from the yellow or the red must spot and call out the colour from the correct flasher on the outside. So if I'm receiving the ball from the red flasher, the red player floater, I must spot and call out the colour getting held up by the red flasher on the outside after the pass and before my first touch. That's when that must happen.
As the ball travels.
So as the ball's travelling. So now it's tied in with the method to score points. Now, you can maintain possession without score, right? So if you, for whatever reason, you've got too much pressure, you can't scan, you didn't look early enough, you didn't look off the ball to know where the players were around you, then you can just maintain possession because that's the important thing, and we'll go and try and find another way to score. But you find this promotes scanning. So we'll just play this. You can see bump goes into the yellow player on the outside holds one up. That player calls it the colour that was getting held up. It's played into here. So that's the type exercise. So now it's a possession-based exercise. Now it's the players are needing to play against opposition, but you're still promoting extra scanning because, again, we play these possession games, and even if the players do scan a little bit in these possession games, right, what they will do is they'll scan within the confines of the playing area. Now, that playing area that's marked out isn't the confines they have in a full field of play. So you don't want the players to just be maintaining possession here with their head down. You want them to be able to maintain possession in tight areas, but also with the capacity of play possession in tight areas, have a scan away from there so you know where your out ball is, so you know where space is to go and exploit, etc. Okay, so that's the idea behind here. So, and again, you'll look here, the yellow floater has got the ball. The yellow flasher on the outside is holding up the cone. And what you can see there is the blue player that is positioned to receive the ball from the yellow player is scanning over to see what cone is getting called up, getting held up. And they will spot and call it the colour as the ball is travelling towards them. And that's what they'll get the point for. Now, when I watch it, depending on the age, you might have a degree of leniency. But if the players don't look as the ball is on its way, I don't give them the point. They might call it the correct colour, but I don't give them the point because they didn't have the last look at the right time. If they don't call it the correct colour, they don't get the point. So these things tie in as a constraint that now force players increasingly to scan. And back to this principle of when do you look for the yellow player in this environment? It shouldn't be as the ball is on its way to you. But you'll see that. You'll see players, the pass is on its way to them from the yellow player, and all of a sudden they're going, oh. Now that tells you straight away they don't scan off the ball, right? And that tells themselves, I don't scan off the ball. Right?
And if he's moving as he's instructed to move, then if you have not had at least a couple of looks beforehand, you don't know where he is, and you're not going to get that as the ball travels. Yeah.
So, and again, we'll talk to the players and say, when should you be looking for these players? So as you're moving about, the dead time when you're away from the ball, when the ball is moving between two players, can you be thinking, as that pass is going from there to there, where's red, where's yellow? You know, and you build that in your repertoire. But then particularly as the ball is travelling in, you'll see, like Richard, if you got the ball and I see that you are shaped up to pass into the yellow flasher, straight away I'm going, Richard's passing the yellow. Where's yellow on the outside? Because I want to know where they are so I can then position myself and have a good body orientation. I can make myself available to the yellow floater to receive the pass and spot and call it the colour with minimal head movement. Quick, yep, yellow, boom. Take my touch and I'm away from opposition. So all these coaching points start coming in here just with a simple addition of these constraints to promote extra scanning. And that's all we're doing. And once again, it's not the colours, it's not the cones, it's not the gloves that are important. It's the fact that the players have had to scan for other players as they're moving around, as they're opposed, as they're playing the game in a possession-based format that will be similar to many exercises that the coaches at then use.
Great. Yeah.
Last exercise I'm going to show, again, you can call this, you know, a rondo type exercise. So what we've got here is we have got a 2v1 on the inside. We've got the two green players against the red on the inside, supported by 4 players on the outside. Okay, so this is a 6v1. Again, your numbers could vary. You know, it could be a 4v3 plus 2. I do it in a 4v4 plus 3 regularly. So, you know, the numbers will vary. It's just about the ideas of what we're trying to achieve here to promote extra scanning. Now, in these type of sessions, what you'll find is players just tend to look at the ball. When it goes to one of the support players on the outside, they'll go and support it, but their body shape will be square to them. They're not open. They're not looking up the field. Why? Because we've not given them a reason to. We've only asked them to keep possession. So all they do is look at the ball largely. So the constraint in here, what I've asked them to do, I tie it in with the method of scoring. When it goes out to a player on the outside, and I've colour-coded these yellow and blue to make it a bit clearer. So if it goes out to the player on the outside, the player on the opposite side has to hold up. Again, it's cones here. It could be gloves, number of hands, whatever it may be, but we've got cones here. The player receiving the pass must spot and call it the colour, getting held up with the player on the opposite side. Okay, so I'll just run through this so you'll get an idea of what I'm on about. So there we go. It goes to the outside player, cone gets held up, player receiving it back, spots, calls out blue. Bump, goes in here, pass. Again, he's scanned as the ball's on its way to him. And I've asked them, again, I've asked them to keep this quite low tempo. I'd asked the defender, look, just jog around really, provide a bit of obstruction. So when you're working with your players, you're maybe going to have higher intensity. Your numbers might change in there. The certain conditions you might have might change. But that gives you the idea. So again, you can see the player at the top has got the ball. So the player on the opposite side is holding up a cone. Now you can see this player has already got a better body shape than what they would have without this constraint. I almost guarantee you. You will find that these players will be far more square. They won't be open up to the field of play and facing forward in the field of play and having a look up there. Why? Because they don't need to in this exercise. They know there's a player up there, so they don't really need to look. But now I'm giving them a reason to look just by spotting and calling it a colour that's getting held up. So the player there, even before it's up, he'll do that. And then again, I have the rule that you've got to have your last look as the ball is on its way to you and call it the colour then. Okay, to get your point. So it's attached to the method of scoring. Again, you can see the two players in here, much better body shape. You start this. I've been to professional clubs and we've done similar exercises to this. The numbers on the outside might change. It might be 6 players on the outside. It might be 6v6 in the middle, but the principles are the same. And I've spoken with the head coach at English Premier League and Championship teams, and they go, look, we do this, and we talk about body shape, and we go, look, he's not getting the right body shape. I said, because you've not given him a reason to look up the field of play. Just having that extra constraint of spotting and calling the colour makes me think, as I'm receiving the ball, what's up there? So again, as a player, it could be I'm the centre midfielder trying to link the centre back to the forwards. Can I get in a position to receive the ball where I'm orientated to move the ball as efficiently as possible in that way, but importantly to look up that way and see where my options are. So again, it's a very simple constraint that anybody could add in just to promote that extra scanning.
You don't have to perhaps you don't have to mention at all about body shape, because you're forcing them to either adopt the correct body shape or they will not be successful. Yeah.
And here's the point, Richard. When I go and do these sessions, I don't tell the players to open up. They start doing it naturally.
They do it.
Like I'll do it whether it's with players or I'm shown on the coaching courses with Irish FA. I'll go, right, okay, we'll do the basic thing. And I'll talk to the coaches at the side, say, look at them, look at their body shape, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll add in this constraint. I'll go, boom, right, let's play. I'll add in this constraint. I've not said anything to the players that are playing in the session. I'll say to the coaches, look at the players now. What do you notice that's different? They go, well, straight away, they're getting a better body shape. Straight away, they're moving in with a better body shape and having early looks up the field of play. I said, exactly. I've not had to tell them to do it. The constraints that we've put in the session have now made them decide this is the best thing for me to do, right? That's how you develop a habit. Again, not by telling players to do something, but create an environment that asks them to do it. Create an environment that almost forces them to do it, because it's like any training, as you know, the body won't adapt unless you force it to. You know, it's the same with this. Much as this is largely a cognitive element, the body's not going to adapt unless you force it to. You've got to put an overload in place. You've got to put a stimulus in place that forces that change. Yeah. You know, that's why you add weights, plates onto the weights that you lift to stimulate the change, you know, to overload the body to provoke change. If you just keep lifting the same weight, your body isn't really going to change that much. You take weights off, it certainly isn't going to change it. Well, it's going to change, but in the direction that my body's changing.
Horizontal.
So back to this slide, and here's the slide that they were asking. So I've just shown a drill. I've just shown what you could argue is a rondo type exercise. I've shown a possession game as well. And I've shown an unopposed exercise. So we can say that's a variation of a passing receiving drill, but it's more dynamic. Again, you look at the numbers here, right? 0.44 is what these players require to do in the game, scanning wise, 0.44 per second. So that's 4.4 looks away from the ball in the 10 seconds prior to them receiving the ball. That was the average. And this was the average that they were doing in these exercise formats. Okay, so you look at the first one, the basic passing drill. The players only looked pretty much once in the 10 seconds prior to receiving the ball, right? And you'll often go into these exercises and players don't look at all. Why? Because they don't need to. They know they're getting the ball there and they know they're going there. They don't look before they get the ball, right? But now I'm forcing them to look, right? I'm giving them a reason to. Now, they might not look a huge amount more, but they will look more. You'll find that they start having early looks. And then the possession type games. You see, I've asked them to scan more. Without those flashers on the outside to look for, they would have kept at this habit of, let's say, the 0.22. Now, we've probably got them closer to the game because as they're moving around, they're continually thinking, where's the flashers on the outside? Where are they? Can I get my body shape right? And then the rondo type exercise, I'll say that the 2v1 with the 4 on the outside, it's a rondo type exercise. Again, you can develop it yourself. Now, we're forcing them to scan, you know. Now, what we could say, all right, well, if we haven't got those players in the middle, and if it's just your, let's say, 5v2, you know, what we do, the 5v2 possession rondo.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you haven't got anybody inside that triggers things, but there's other ways that you can trigger that. And one of the simple ways I have is just somebody going around the outside.
It could be you, one of the coaches, or somebody. Yeah.
And just say to players, anytime that you're receiving the ball, or any time that you receive the ball in a certain way, you've got to spot and call it the colour that's getting held up by this player going around the outside. So now they can't just focus on this. They're thinking, let's look here. Where is he? Let's look here. Where is he? Right, just so they always know where I am. And those extra looks away from the ball to update where I am are scans, which will inform them of, okay, they're only looking at me for a colour as the ball's on its way. But, oh, I know where I need to look because I've looked a few times. I know where Kev is. Boom, red, before my first touch and play a pass. All of a sudden, you've promoted more scanning within that training environment. And that's all we're trying to do. Again, it's not to say that any of these exercise formats are bad, because any exercise format will probably fit in one of these. It's just to say, if these don't promote the same amount of scanning that's actually required in the game, in their basic format, are there ways as coaches we could adapt them or add in constraints that promote more scanning that's closer to the game or even exceeds the level required in the game? So when they come to play the game, they've got that habit. And importantly, when we're doing it, they've got the habit of doing it even under pressure, even when there's opposition in the area, even when there's opposition on the field. Have they got this habit of looking around more? Because sometimes when you put them in that pressure environment, the way opponents there, it puts their focus back onto the ball because they don't want to lose it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're trying to encourage them. And again, how you as a coach set the tone for that. And because bear in mind, when you first try this, there's going to be a lot of failure. Well, it's no failure. It's learning opportunities.
Learning, right? Yeah, right? Yeah. And I wonder if you need to get in contact with Gayer and get him to do a comparison now, right? Like you know, perhaps you can raise those numbers up by the constraints on the games. Yeah.
So really, that's all I've. Let me. I think again. I just showed that there's picture. Oops, sorry. Again, I've done this at youth level. Just so people know, I've done this at youth level. I've done it with kids. The youngest kids I've ever worked with are 7. And I had really one bright 7-year-old that was great at it. But I've done all this kind of stuff at first team level. These couple of pictures here when I was coaching at Dundee United and Partick Thistle in the Scottish Premier League and Scottish Championship. There's wee Goldie, who's now Vancouver Whitecaps. We've implemented these ideas. Exactly how they get implemented might change slightly, but all the exercises that I've just showed, I've done at all levels. I've even done that basic passing drill with a professional team because the coach asked for it. I'm there with a professional first team. I said, right, any particular ideas what you want me to do? And he'd seen that basic passing drill. He said, I want you to do that basic passing drill. I'm like, with first team players? He went, yep, I want you to do that. And even those got challenged because in my exercises, I could add in extra layers, not just the simple scan, but extra stuff. And we all had a good time. We all had a bit of fun, but it challenged even first team professional players. Why? Because in these types of environments, even those are not used to scanning maybe at the right time or as frequently as they should. So that's it. Any questions? I don't know how much time we've got left.
Well, a little bit of time left. I'll thank you so much. And I do have a question because I know you mentioned it, and I think I probably briefly mentioned it even in our last talk about the, like, I guess the contrast between, let's say training in this way and training with, whether it's Fit Lights or one of these other kind of reaction type products. And, you mentioned a great point, which I agree with, which is that, the lights are very useful, but you want players to get used to looking for other players.
Yeah.
So is that sort of the main reason why you prefer to do it this way? Yeah.
Well, I love gadgets just like everybody else, Richard. I love the Fit Light system. I think it's great. Has it got certain limitations? Aye, because every training thing has got limitations, whether it's on the park or off the park. I love the Fit Light system. Club America, we had the Football a big, $1 million facility. Had one of these Football great, but again has limitations. Great bit too. Now, all of these, I think, are fantastic supplementary training to what goes on the field. I like to concentrate on the field. Now, if I have a club with the resources to have Fit Light football knots, would I ask my club to get them? Yes, because I think you can do a lot of supplementary training away from the team, away from the group as an individual. I use, like when I'm working, doing my private sessions, or whether even at Club America, I would take players away for small group sessions. I've got my iPads that just flash up with colours and numbers, and I give them key times of when to look at these and when to call it the numbers. Now, with these things, what I find is that the only thing, and it sounds a bit like semantics, people go, right, okay, if it's red, do this, if it's yellow, do that, whatever. And the same in my exercises with the coloured gloves and cones. You might ask them to do something in relation to the colour, which is great, but that is not decision making. People will say, oh, see, what we're doing a bit of decision making. No, you're not, because they're still being told what to do, right? They're being told, red, do this, yellow, do that. And I remember on one of the courses, we came up with the phrase, assisted decision making, right? Assisted. Ultimately, that is, if they are doing that in relation to that stimulus, and that stimulus is telling them exactly what to do, that's not decision making. No, it helps them absorb something, it helps them process something, it helps them respond to something and get their body used to doing all that, and that's fantastic. I've not got a problem with that, but we cannot call it decision making. Now, some people will say that and they think it really is. Others will say it, they know it isn't, but you know what, it's a term that people will kind of understand, but that isn't decision making. But it can help them become better decision makers on the field of play, because now they're used to looking away from the ball. Now they're used to taking in something. Now they're used to processing something, and they're used to responding to stimuli all while the ball is live.
The habit of scanning can make players better at making decisions, but scanning in and of itself is not
No,
a decision.
no,
Yeah.
and that's it. And scanning is a part of the decision. It informs the decision-making process. It's not decision-making in itself, and we need to understand that as well. But without scanning, as I probably said last time, without scanning, there's a technical term for what players do without scanning, and it's guess. They guess about what they're going to do. Okay, so I'd rather players make decisions, and in order to make decisions, you need to be informed. Okay. So, and in order to be informed out in the playing area, you've got to scan. So it's part of the, and again, if people remember what we talked about on last time, what I've got in my book, it's the whole game awareness model and the levels that are in there. This is just right at the start of game awareness. I understand there's other components to game awareness. There's other components of putting meaning to what you see, etc. But without opening this door for players in the first place and helping them develop the habit of scanning and adding that to their game, they won't be able to take in information. They won't be able to make decisions. So we really need to help them, and as early as possible, at the youngest stages possible as well.
Great. Well, I don't know if there's any other questions. I know definitely, Toby, I'm happy that we got to address your questions that you asked. And yeah, it is a little past 3 o'clock. So Kevin, I'm so happy you got those technical issues sorted out, because this is a fantastic again presentation, and really useful to bring to light exactly how to train for these behaviors, because I think it's such a popular topic among coaches, and clearly you've laid out how important of an ability it is. That it differentiates the top level players from others, that we know that players that make more successful forward passes are the ones that are scanning more. We can see what the demands of the game are versus training, and now you've shown exactly how to train for it. And I think probably a lot of coaches could probably use some of these examples and develop hundreds of variations of them as well, right? So
that's exactly it. And again, I always want to caveat things by saying that I am not saying this is the way to train scanning. It is a way to train scanning. So again, by all means, take my ideas. Like I've outlined more in the book. There's more exercises in there. There's other different types of practices. But take those ideas and see if you can incorporate them into the training exercises that you like. But ultimately, whether it's you incorporate these style of constraints or you find another constraint that works for you, great. I just think that we really need to develop this aspect, this habit of scanning. Now, I find this works. It's no rocket science. It doesn't need to be rocket science. It's a very simple constraint that any coach can add to pretty much any exercise that they're already using. And straight away you promote more scanning, and that's what I've always just tried to achieve. Throw the ideas out there and show exercises with simple constraints that coaches can incorporate straight away to help the players.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you again, Kevin. I hope everybody watching, you got some real great value out of this, as did I. I keep scanning over here because I know I got someone coming in to work with me, so I got to get going too. But again, thanks so much, and to everyone watching, as we said before, please, consider, if you're not already a member, look into our memberships, and we'll hopefully maybe bring Kevin back again, and if these restrictions get lifted, we are right now looking into locations and times for our next convention, and perhaps Kevin can come and if he's got some time and deliver a couple of these sessions live as well. So thanks again, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, great.
Okay.
Cheers, Richard.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Have a good one. Bye bye.
And you.